Good day. Uh, Welcome to the Armchair Cricket podcast. Thanks for joining us once again. We have previously posted a pilot episode and we got very encouraging response from our friends and a couple of listeners worldwide. So welcome to the first official podcast of the Armchair Cricket show. And I'm your host Ajit. I am an expat in the Netherlands and I'll be joined by a few guests who are also cricket enthusiasts, and we will discuss the ongoing events in the world cricket. We are effectively cricket purists, we would like to call ourselves that. So our focus will be mostly on the long format of the game, but we will occasionally pick up some stories or some series about the shorter formats, including the ODI and T20s. So without much further ado, I would like to introduce you to my guest today, Giridhar, whom I'll call Giri. Hello Giri, welcome to the podcast.
Hello Ajit, thank you for having me here. I'm Giri, also an expat living in the Netherlands. Like Ajit, I'm also a fan of the purest form of the game, the test cricket. So hopefully we can have a lot of chats about ongoing test series around the world, along with other things like Ajit mentioned. Look forward to this conversation, Ajit. Stage is yours.
Thank you. Welcome. So before you go any further, we have a little bit of feedback from our friends, and there were some small corrections that were pointed out to us. So I would like to start off with that. In the previous episode, while discussing the fact that Alistair Cook was knighted, I think we may have given out the impression that him and Botham were the only two England cricketers that were knighted. This is not right. I looked it up, and there are as many as up to 14 people, 14 English men who have been knighted, and I think there was also one English woman who was knighted. So again, something we can look it up easily on Wikipedia. I see very famous names in this list. It should have been obvious to us while discussing that there should have been more. So there is Gubby Allen, there's Alec Bedser, there's Neville Cardus, there's Colin Cowdrey, who was then created the Lord Cowdrey of Tonbridge after being knighted, of course. Then there's Jack Hobbs, there's Len Hutton, there's Francis Eden Lacey, there's I think Henry Gresham, Leverson Gower. These are, I think, people who are probably more involved in the administration side. And then, of course, there's Frederick Charles Toone and Plum Warner, some very interesting people. These were the people who have been knighted. Also, there's Ian Botham, and then there's Francis Stanley Jackson, who was incidentally, I think this might be an exception, Francis Stanley Jackson, because he was later the governor of Bengal in the 1920s and 30s. So that's very interesting. I think he might be one of those people who played cricket and then successfully transitioned to a political career, much like the current Prime Minister of Pakistan, or another example that we may discuss later in this podcast. So it's very interesting that there are quite a few people who have been recognized for their services. And there was one Indian who was also knighted, an Indian actually. So would you hazard a guess who that is? I don't know if you already looked it up, Giri.
No, I haven't looked it up, to be honest. Would that be Ranji?
That's a good guess, but no. So this is at the time where there were little kings and baronets in India who sort of received this as a. So it was Maharaj Kumar of Vijayanagaram, who was, I think, the first. He led the Indian first tour to England in the 30s, and he was knighted by England.
For that reason?
I think so. I mean, as a part of services. The fun part is he officially renounced his knighthood after India gained its independence. So this is something else.
Much like Rabindranath Tagore.
Yep. Yes. And Rachel Hayhoe Flint, probably the most influential women's cricketer there ever has been, was created the Baroness Hayhoe Flint of Wolverhampton because of her services to cricket. And I think this is the only lady cricketer who's been recognized as such. So that's something worth mentioning. So this is a small correction that has been brought to our notice. Also, I think I claimed Bob Willis was the last fast bowling England captain. A friend pointed out later that it was not just Bob Willis. Andrew Flintoff, even though he was an all-rounder, was effectively fast bowler, and he was the last England captain who was also a fast bowler. I think he led the England in tests and down and fairly disastrous Ashes series. If I'm not wrong, 2011. So that was him, and then I think Broad did some captaining in the T20s as well. So England have experimented with their fast bowlers being captains. I think this came up while discussing Australia. Trying to
It's
choose.
never been a successful formula, fast bowlers and captains.
Yes. It sort of makes sense. These are the most injury-prone people. What you mentioned previously. So, yeah. And the other, I think, correction that was pointed out is that we got the venues wrong for the tests, the remaining tests at that point in time between South Africa and Pakistan. Just a small heads up. Those were some corrections. So I would like to again say thanks to our friends and listeners who pointed these things out to us. So now let's go on to the topics at hand. So first we will go through the major ongoing test series out there, and then any other test or one-day series we would like to discuss. So the first one, as we've self-proclaimed India cricket fans, so the first one would be the India-Australia test series. So Giri, we've had 4 days of play. A very interesting 2 days, 2 sessions of play lost on the 4th day, and India have enforced follow-on in the 4th test. So it looks like for now Australia heading into the last day are about 318 runs behind, and or 316 runs behind. They are effectively 6 for no loss in the 3rd innings, and they'll need to make more than 320 to make India back again, let's say like that. So for now, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, the only thing I can see happening from Australia's perspective is they have to bat out 3 sessions if they can. So I don't think there is any other option for them. They just have to save this match and save their face, because it's going to be 2-1 at the end of the series if they can save this match. Having said that, we've seen that weather had a part to play yesterday on the 4th day. So it rained for quite a bit, and then there was outfield also wet, also got delays because of that. So they can, I don't know if we can rely on weather. I don't think that's the right approach. If you're a true Australian, hard fighting Australian cricketer, then you would look forward to fighting the day out, finishing unbeaten by the end of the day. But apart from this, apart from them being able to save this test match, it's been quite a bit of an anticlimax, if you ask me, because I always expect Australia to come hard at us, come hard at India or any team that visit them. This has been kind of very meek. The way the series has progressed, especially at the end of the series, this last test match at SCG, I think the bowlers were completely worn out. Fatigue also coming in. So I think they should be happy with a draw, but let's see what happens then. If India has another twist, if the bowlers can come up with something, if it has rain, if there is some movement available for the seamers, or if Kuldeep is again effective like he was in the first innings, it's going to be interesting. From an Indian perspective, I would say go for the win. Give it your all, because this is your best chance to come up with 3-1. That's amazing. It has never happened. Indeed. So, I mean, it's very well poised. At the same time, it's down to Australia now. What can they do? What can they do?
I was looking at the weather forecast for tomorrow. So it looks like there is a 23% chance of precipitation, but it'll be cloudy all round. So effectively, let's say it gives us India about at best 98 overs to bowl Australia out. It's sort of unexpected that they lost about 2 sessions of play. So on the 4th day, only about 24 overs effectively were bowled, and Australia lost all their first innings wickets and were bowled out for 300.
Correct.
And then they finished 6 for no loss in this followed on innings, the 3rd innings of the game. So here, I think one thing worth mentioning is that this is the first time since 86-87 that Australia has been asked to follow on at home. So that's a nice achievement from the Indian team, I would say. So that's something they can be proud of nonetheless. So if there was enough time, I think Kohli would have batted out those 2 sessions and given his bowlers a bit of respite. Given that they didn't have to bowl a whole lot today, I think it makes sense that then follow on is enforced. So yes, you're right. At least from the weather perspective, it may hold out tomorrow. India may get the best part of the day or most of the day to enforce a result, and a 3-1 result would be a very deserving result for India in this series, is my opinion. They've played really well. So just to look back at what happened on this test. So again, India batted really well in the first innings, which has been sort of the cornerstone of the last two tests as far as India is concerned. So they put up a large total, 622 for 7, and I think Pujara again stood up to get counted, and I think the first two sessions of the first day were very instrumental for me. The way Agarwal and Pujara set up the total was very good. I saw that Australians did bowl with quite a lot of aggression in the first two sessions. There were quite a few body blows. Literally, I think Agarwal took a few. Pujara got hit on the helmet. I think Pujara took one also on the body. So they sort of stuck it out. I thought they batted really well. And the other thing is, in this test, you can see that they had read the pitch quite right, and they were able to score at more than 3.3 runs an over or throughout. And then you see, of course, Agarwal fails. I think he did the right thing, trying to dominate Lyon very early in his spell, not letting him settle down. I think that was a team strategy, and he's a very natural striker of the ball. So I think that was his role, let's say. Unfortunately, having already hit 1/6 that over, I think he went for one too many, and he was dismissed for 77. But we'll park this on the side. We can discuss Agarwal when we look at the whole series, but I think he's been one of the plus points for India in the series.
True, very true. Yeah.
Then, of course, Pujara batted on and on and on, and then he had Kohli for a while, Rahane for a while, both scoring 20s and 18, I think, Rahane, and Vihari helped him wrap the day up very nicely. So he was also looking very steady, Vihari. He looked like the right sort of foil as far as Pujara was concerned. And as usual, Pujara sort of, the moment he finished 50 or got to 50, 60, he started accelerating, and he was doing a very good job, especially the way he played Lyon. Again, something we can discuss later. He played Lyon so well. I saw him advance to Lyon. I think out of every 4 to 5 balls he faced, 3 balls he would advance at Lyon, making sure the length that Lyon bowled was completely irrelevant. He used to work him through extra cover or mid wicket, almost Lakshman-like, if I may use that. So
I think if you look back in the series, I think Cheteshwar Pujara was one of the only few batsmen who actually came down the wicket to Lyon more frequently than anybody else.
Oh well, I mean,
because I think it really hurt Lyon. He couldn't get his length right, and he had to get Lyon thinking. Otherwise, I think they have completely blunted out Lyon. They were able to at least.
In the third and the fourth test, that's a big factor for me as well. Yeah. They did really well. The other guy who batted very adventurously was, of course, Rishabh Pant. This is a coming man of Indian cricket. Another bonus for us from the series, because he's 21. I mean, look at the way he played. He's become the first Indian keeper to have scored 100, both in England and now in Australia. For all the tours we have done, never was a wicket keeper who had scored 100. Can you believe that? And this guy's done it in his first year of international cricket, or first year of Test cricket.
He always promised this. I mean, if you look at the whole series, he had a start in every innings. He played 25, 30 in every innings. Okay. I think the only issue was that he was mostly batting with the tail, and then he had to change his game. He had to play a bit more aggressively or keep strike and that kind of stuff. So he was not allowed to play his natural game, I think. And I think with batting with Pujara helped him do that. So he was able to take time. He played a long innings, real proper Test cricket.
Indeed.
And I think that really is a tribute to his talent, because he played really well, and Australia were demoralized at the end of it all.
This guy is probably, it's too soon to say this, but we see shades of Gilchrist in this guy. That level of game-changing ability we see a bit in this guy. So this has to be nurtured and made sure it has to grow in the right way. But that's a very, very positive thing as far as Indian cricket is concerned, because he, of course, had Jadeja to back him in the last. I think they hit 200 in a matter of a session and a quarter or such. That completely deflated the Australian attack, and ensured India finished 600 plus, and still were able to let Australia bat for a few overs on the end of the second day. That is very important. So that sort of dominance, the moment you score 600, it's very highly unlikely you will lose your test match. The test match is safe. So they have done really well there already, but also they ensured Australia bowled more than 160 overs consecutively in consecutive innings. Only twice has it happened in the last 50 years, apparently. Can you guess when was the last time?
When was the last time?
Yes.
I have no idea, man.
No. Okay, it's more
Yeah,
of
okay.
the moment I say it, you are like, ah. So would you like to take a guess?
Was that
Australia bowling. So
in Australia or outside of Australia?
it's outside as well. So the
Yeah, it
thing
could be
is,
then Eden Gardens then.
exactly. So that
Yeah.
series where
Yeah.
the series in India in 2001, where
Yeah.
in Eden Gardens, then they followed it in Chennai, where in consecutive tests, if I'm not wrong, they had to go for the third new ball. So this is the important thing. So
Wow.
when you
Amazing.
make a team bowl more than 160 overs, officially taking a third new ball, that's a statement in itself. That usually breaks, especially if it's near the end of a series, it can break teams. That's what they did here. I really like that. This is proper test cricket. They made sure they batted out 2 days. Now maybe they will not have to bat again, all that is there, but also they made sure Australian fast bowlers had to do it, or Australian bowlers had to stay on the field for 4 days in a row, or 4 days in 6-8 days of cricket. That's fantastic. So if you do this in the first one or two tests, you could even wrap a series of 4-0. This is probably the next step as far as the Indian Test team is concerned. Something
Yeah.
they're learning, they're growing. You could just forget that they were playing in Australia the way they're playing for a while. It could be anywhere. It could be on your own pitches. They were so dominant here in this Test match. Then, of course, on the third day, Australia came out fighting, which was expected. Harris played really well. Khwaja actually played really well as well. I think he sort of, in a moment of lapse of concentration, he hit to mid-wicket and was dismissed. Otherwise, it looked very promising, the first wicket stand of 72. Following which, I think, again, Harris and Labushkagni, or Labuschagne, the way they pronounce it. So, this guy played really well, and they sort of set up a very nice total. Australia was 1 for 125, 126, something like this. They were really good, set up for, matching India, if required. That's when sort of two things happened. One is Harris sort of was dismissed as Jadeja playing a very loose stroke. It was not much of a very good ball. It was inside edge onto the stumps. It was very unfortunate. But he was out that way. Then again the middle order was exposed. Here you see there was nobody there to capitalize. In the Indian case, you saw even though Kohli and Rahane failed, we had a lower middle order who were ready to capitalize on a very good start. And the most important thing there again was Pujara, who stood there, top three batsmen staying there, nearly scoring 200 runs, ensuring that this dominance continues. This did not happen. So Australia finished 236 for 6 at the end of the third day. And sort of by then you can see if you are even 230 for 3 or 230 for 4 max, you'd still think, you could extend it to 400. You could take it to enough of a place where India would have to bat again. But that went out of the window because they were 6 down and Pat Cummins was already batting with Hanscom. What do you think of Hanscom's inclusion at Mitchell Marsh's expense for this test? Yeah, go on.
No, I think Hanscom was brought in because of his supposedly good ability to play spin, right?
Yeah.
Has he done well enough? I'm not sure. I think it's still 30 odd runs. It's not much.
He may have
who else did they have? Who else did they have apart from him? Maybe Maxwell.
Yes. I was quick there. I mean, I don't know what this guy has done really. So, I don't think they handled him right at the beginning of the season, but this was a chance to sort of correct it because nothing against Hanscom. He's a good player and he is very good at spin. He's very good at playing spin, but he went back to BBL, hit a couple of really quick innings there, and then he was brought back. I mean, I don't know if that was the case or if it was just his ability to play spin, but Maxwell is still sitting on the sidelines. He's waiting, this guy, right? And he has done his part also in BBL. He was also the captain of a BBL team. I think they're doing okay. And more importantly, this would have given him the right sort of a message. This again was another opportunity missed, according to me, from the Australian selector's perspective. He could have been what role Pant played. It could have been Maxwell there, and he could have done a similar sort of a thing. He scored 120 out of 150 balls or whatever, and that would have given quite a lot of, Australia could have gone to 450 even, possibly, but they missed a trick there. And look, Hanscom is good. He scored 37 runs, but it took him nearly 120 balls, 110 balls, and there's nothing wrong in that, but he could not dominate the attack. He was playing a standard test match innings. There is nobody to hit out on the other side. So, the other thing that Australia could do was repay India in their own currency. That is, make their bowlers toil for more than 150 overs or whatever. In this case, they were able to last only 100 overs over 2 days. So that was not too, even 3 days, that was not too taxing on the Indian bowling attack. That's one of the other reasons why Kohli was so confident enforcing the following on. If Australia had played out those additional 40 overs, they would have ensured India would have been considering batting. And given that a lot of time was lost in Sydney on the fourth day, it would have made sense that maybe Australia could have easily pushed for a draw here. Now they still have their backs to the wall because if the weather holds out, they still have to bat out 98 overs on the last day against a very rampant Indian attack. This is not something you take lightly, right? So the other thing, of course, is for me, the way the Indian spinners bowled on the fourth day and the third day. They were very good. I thought Kuldeep Yadav was fantastic. He got a bit of luck in the way, let's say, Khwaja was out. Yeah, just hitting out to mid-wicket. But I was very impressed with the way he bowled. Fantastic control. Spin it's a very tough proposition. I bowl a bit myself. So it's very tough. But this guy was bowling fantastically. Nobody could actually pick him effectively. So the most important players of spin in that lineup for me was Marsh, Khwaja, and maybe even Hanscom, And they did a very good job. At least they would have done a very good job. But this guy bowled fantastically. Especially the way in which he dismissed Payne and the way Lyon was out. Those were like typical wrist spinners dismissals where the ball is tossed up well outside your eye line or well above your eye line and the ball dips and you're not sure where it's going to pitch. At least the way Lyon was out, it looks like he could have referred it and could have got away. He tried to sweep. So those are all classic dismissals. That filled me with a lot of hope. Look, this is his first innings bowling in Australia and he's taken a 5-hour. That's fantastic. And he had the right guy on the other end, Jadeja, who was bowling so, as usual, doing the Jadeja thing, bowling on a template, bowling perfectly right there in
darts, those left arm darts, yeah.
Precisely. And but some of his dismissals were not as, let's say, simplistic as they looked. The way Sean Marsh was out.
Yeah, he was playing for a spin that wasn't there.
Exactly. So, and that's still fine. So, Rahane took a couple of really good catches, I thought. The one of Marnus Labuschagne was a fantastic catch from Shami. It was very low down at mid-wicket. I don't know if you saw it. It was one of those things that you work on to getting a wicket. It's almost
this
like
was, this was a la Aaron Finch in the previous test, where Mayank took that similar catch.
Exactly. It was almost like that. And
they worked him out. Yeah.
The only thing is, I think I feel a bit for Aaron Finch. I think he was a bit unfortunate to lose his place in this team. My changes would have been to play Glenn Maxwell in place of Peter Hanscom and retain Aaron Finch, if possible, at, I don't know, Marnus Labuschagne had to play.
Number 5.
Yeah, I would have played him in the middle order, 4, 5, 6. And Travis Head, I think, has done enough to retain his place. So it would have been a tough call. But I would have actually maybe not played the Head, maybe asked Khwaja to open, which he has done anyway, and retained Aaron Finch. But it's a tough decision that I completely concede.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate that Aaron Finch lost his place, but I think he may get another go. I would not completely write him off from this team. The testing.
Or maybe he needs some rest before the one-day series.
Yeah, I mean,
because he's the captain of the one-day.
No, I think that's okay. In Australia, they do think like that, but I think playing in a test match would have counted for a lot more, even for his confidence. When you're on a high, suppose you had played in the 4 test match, scored even a couple of 50s or such, confidently from the middle order, that would have helped quite a lot for his own mindset, because we'll get into it later in the podcast. Their team has changed quite a lot for the ODIs, right? So that's something he'll have to anyway deal with, and this confidence would have helped him quite a lot. So just to wrap up the last test, and we can get into India's gains. So in the last test, what is your prediction, Giri? India versus Australia 4 test?
I mean, it's going to be tough, like I said, but I'm hoping Australia will bat out the 3 sessions.
All right.
Get something out of this series, not end on a very bad note, although I think India will snatch this. I think India will be able to close them out.
Yes.
Then ball out the next, remaining batsmen, whatever. I think 10 wickets, right? It's still no loss at the end of day 4. So I'm hoping that happens, because that's going to be very nice. 3-1 will be such a fantastic feeling to have. It's like winning the World Cup.
Agreed. I would say yes, that I back the Indian bowlers to take the 10 wickets in the 90 odd overs. If they were to get a full day's play, I'm going to back the Indian bowlers to dismiss Australia again and win the test match 3-1 or series 3-1 for India. So let's see how it goes. But one way or the other, now if you were to just look, I think we discussed quite a lot of it already. But some of the gains and from both team perspective, first, if you were to look at India, I think we discussed Mayank Agarwal. I think he's done a very good job. I think he's sort of shown that he has a pedigree to be a long-term prospect as far as opening goes for India in test matches. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think so. At the expense of Vijay. So I think Vijay probably has had his time. I think he's had enough chances. Rahul, I think he still has a lot of potential. He's very young. And he has hit test centuries also in Australia in his debut series. So he deserves a longer run.
I think he'll be in the pool. Let's say once Shaw comes back, I still see Shaw as one of the permanent fixtures along with now Agarwal. So Vijay is probably out of the picture, but Rahul will stay. And these three will form, let's say, the fulcrum of the opening slot for the
Yeah, I think India haven't had a proper opener for quite a while, right? I mean, I think Gautam Gambhir and Virendra Sehwag, those two were the last known openers, right?
Exactly, sort of a
stable pair, yeah.
Indeed. So these two can be that, Agarwal and Shaw, or Agarwal and Rahul and Shaw between them. So it doesn't hurt if there's a little bit of pressure, on your, it's good that you are always on your toes and you're able to perform. So that's good. But at the end of the day, I would very much like to see how Agarwal I think in India he'll be a bully. I mean, this is how I see it. With him,
he will boss around. He will boss around. Any spinner is going to whack him out of the park.
So it is
look at how he handled Alayan. Yeah, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No. You hit the point on the head, because for me, when the fast bowlers are not as effective in India, I think this guy is going to be quite a handful, along with Shaw, who I was really looking forward to him playing. Unfortunately, he was injured out, but his time will come. He's very young. So these both, I think they may be agenda setters as far as India is concerned. It's like a la Hayden and Langer, or one of those, any of those really marauding opening pairs out there in Test match history. So these guys could be the next really positive Test match opening pair for India. That's one thing. Then of course Pujara. I think he's my man of the series. I think he was the real difference between the two teams, at least in 3 of the 4 tests, with his hundreds and his application. He showed how to play on that pitch, and he held Indian innings together multiple times, or contributed to them building a very, very big total. All of these together, I would say he's my man of the series. Bumrah did fantastically well. Shami did well in patches. Now Kuldeep has a 5-4. Ashwin did well in the first 2 tests. But in spite of all this, my man of the series as far as the Indian team is concerned is Pujara. And this guy is now, at least for me, put to rest all the doubts that there ever were about his batting. 300.
They should never have been. I mean, they should never have been such questions. Come on.
Let's leave that in the past. Yes, I agree with you there. So they shouldn't have been, because he deserves his place on the way he plays, and he has shown that there is still enough room for an old world Test match player in a team.
It's pure mental fortitude. It's that kind of mental strength you cannot have in every person. You need somebody like that in your team.
There was Dravid previously, and we remember the contributions and the number of series Dravid helped set up. Right? Yeah. So this guy could be that. I mean, he's already done it. He's played 70 tests, I think. So I think he deserves no more doubts in the way he plays, and his place, I'm not going to say should be taken for granted, but he should deserve it on pure merit. There should never be a discussion going forward whether Pujara should be drawn for a Rohit Sharma or a Rahane.
No.
Unless he's injured, he deserves his place in this Test match team.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And then Kohli, of course, did really well. I would say he won 1 Test match by himself, at least, or contributed when he hit 100. So he had Pujara with him there. But Kohli did enough. For me, the biggest gain is the way Kohli's captaincy has improved in this series, right? We saw some of these, we talked about dismissals, about working out batsmen, in a Test match, the old school way, where you plan it over 3 or 4 overs, and then you slowly make sure the batsman is starved, and then he makes this mistake of hitting to mid-wicket or gully or extra cover or wherever. So we saw that sort of an approach. That should be the next approach. See, I would never expect Kohli to be a completely intuitive, purely out and out intuitive captain, a la Brendan McCullum, or in his pomp a little bit of Stephen Fleming. No, but this is still a guy who's he's learned it well now, and I think he's showing what he can be going forward. The Indian Test captaincy is a very contested contested a very tough thing to do. But I think he's shown he's good to go another 3-4 years, maybe even till the end of his career if he can stretch it out. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he sets the right attitude. He comes up with the right attitude for his teammates to follow. So he's leading by example. Yeah, I think he has also got a good backroom staff. The coaching staff are also very good. They are coming up with right suggestions for him, and he is able to implement them, supported by his bowlers. So I think he's got a really good team going. And I think there was an article some time ago. I don't know who wrote it, but the complete fitness regimen of the Indian team has changed ever since Kohli has been the captain. So he has brought on a new culture of fitness. So all your fast bowlers are really fit. They can bowl flat out for 20 plus overs in a day. That's very nice. So I think all in all, I've actually I initially thought that he would not be the right captain for Indian cricket team, considering his attitude back then, not attitude, but I can say behavior back then. He was quite volatile. He was very emotional. But he has changed. So I think on that front, he has made a lot of improvement.
Also, I would credit his partner, Anushka Sharma, possibly. Maybe there is a role there for her. That she
possibly, yeah. I think he
helps to say. But at the end of the day, look, we have to say all your points are very relevant. Indian team is more professional, better drilled down, more fit. All of this thanks to the backroom staff and Kohli's personal approach. He brings this across to the team. You're right. Also, yeah. So, in terms of volatility, probably 3-4 years is usually, or even 4 to 5 years is maximum as a captain of a test match team, they say. But this guy could go on for a bit longer, unless something really drastic happens. I would say he should be able to stretch it out another 2 to 3 years at least, right?
How old is he now? He's 30, just turned 30.
Just 30. Yes.
So, wow, the world is ahead.
Indeed.
I think it's a three. I think he can be captain for until he's 35 or so, like Graham Smith, for example.
Yeah. He could effectively captain 70, 80 or more tests. That's quite an achievement.
Could be the most successful test captain ever in India ever had.
He already, I think, matched Ganguly in the number of.
When he finishes, when he finishes.
Yes. He could very much finish as the most successful test captain for India. He's already matched Ganguly when it comes to the number of abroad overseas wins, for India. Yeah. And I think that will be fantastic. He will be going into uncharted territory, as you say. So he has quite a few things also from the one day and world T20 sort of goals, I'm sure. But from test matches itself, he may really be the next milestone as far as Indian captains are concerned. That's something I'm really happy to see. His evolution as a captain. And of course, I think he's at his peak as a batsman, and I hope he continues for a couple more years. And
I think his team also, if you take the average age of the current Indian team, I don't think that it crosses 30.
Indeed.
So he has a team. I think he can lead for another 2 to 3 years, maybe a stable team with the current set of players, providing their form is good enough.
You brought it. So I'll just quickly go there. Is this team good enough to be the number one for a couple more years to come, do you think?
Can they sustain it? They are already number one.
So yeah. That's the point. Can they continue?
Which is the next test series coming up? There is nothing until the World Cup, I know. After the World Cup?
I have to look it up as well. I've not looked it up, but okay.
I think there will be something in India after the World Cup, probably. And then, so there is not much test cricket to be played for the next half a year or so for India. So it's going to be interesting. So it will be a dormant period. Will they come back fresh after the World Cup? What's going to happen? I'm not sure.
There's the Zimbabwe tour of India before the World Cup where they play a test and 3 ODIs. Then there's the IPL. Then there's the ICC Test Championship, which officially kicks off in July. Correct? So then India tour West Indies. I'm just telling you, in 2019, India has 2 more test engagements. Right? One is the one-off test against Zimbabwe. The other is a 2-match test series against West Indies in West Indies. Right? Then India tour, then South Africa tour India. This is October 2019. Then in November, Bangladesh tour India. And then in December, West Indies tour India. But West Indies tour doesn't have any tests. So as far as India is concerned, they have 2, 3, 2, 1. So in this year, they will play 9 more tests. So it's very mouth-watering. For me, all of those except the West Indies are at home. So that's very good. So for now, I think I would say they are very nicely set up. India are visiting Australia again in 2020. The winter of 2020, they're visiting Australia again, right? So I would like to see if they return to that tour as the number one team in the world. That would be fantastic. That's something I would really look forward to. So maybe this Indian team who have already been world number one for better part of a year, if I'm not wrong, I would be really curious to see if they can extend it to another 2 to 3 years. One of the real measures of being great is also the longevity. Okay.
Now, coming to the Indian middle order, especially guys like Rahane, how do you think they have done, Ajit? What's your opinion?
So for me, I was a bit disappointed with the way Rahane played. He's the vice captain of the team, and we don't know his contributions behind the scene, of course. But I expected a bit more from this guy in terms of performances on field. I don't think he had even a single 50 in this series, and that's a bit disappointing.
I think he had one.
He had one, okay.
Yeah.
But still, it's a 8 innings, 4 test match series of such an important, I think he was a bit underwhelming, but that's okay. I think now if another series goes like this, I'm worried his place in the team may come under scrutiny because he's coming off a very narrow patch of performance or a very.
Yeah, but I think the way he played, he was trying to counter-attack the Australian bowlers. You remember that? He did some uppercuts against the fast bowlers when they were peppering him. Was that in MCG? I think that was at the MCG. He tried to enforce things when the pace was really slow.
I think
I think he had a specific role.
Yes,
maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, but what I have seen previously in the other tours, if I remember right, he is successful when he is sort of an agenda setter. He will never be a Pujara, right? He will never be one of those people who is going to block his way to 100 in a day. For him, very productive 1.5 sessions is all he needs, right? With that in mind, I would say that's his natural game. That's not a problem, and sort of it fits into him being an enforcer, as you say. That's okay. For me, as long as he can perform, score a very effective 100 or an effective 80 or even a 70, because I think that was missing in the test match that India lost on Perth. His contributions were sort of something that I felt let India down. One of among many others, let's say, right? So it was unfortunate that he could not stand up to be counted. That's okay. Then coming to Vihari, so for me, Vihari sort of had a middling sort of a tour. He did play most of the test matches and all of them, in fact. So I think he was asked to open. He tried his best. He looked good in the first 2 test matches. He looked good also in the last one, where he was unfortunate to be dismissed on 42. It looked like because he was given out, it couldn't be pulled back.
Turned off.
Yeah. So let's say for me, he did not come of age on this tour, but he has shown enough promise that he deserves to be continued in the team. My most important thing as far as Vihari for me is to not make the same mistake that was done with Karun Nair. Do you agree?
Yeah, for sure. I think Karun Nair deserved more chances. He was there with the team during the England tour, but not given a chance. I think I have some. Let me keep my remarks to myself. I think
no, you can air them out. It's okay. Ours is an opinion podcast. Go for it.
Yeah, exactly. But then I think he should have been given a chance in England. They shouldn't have allowed Vihari to play. They should have allowed Karun to play them because he was also part of the team there. And he has scored a triple hundred in Test cricket, so that's no mean feat. Even though it was in India, I think it's still a long innings. You should consider those things.
He's only the second ever triple centurion, right?
So, exactly.
I would put it like this. I think there were more things going on than were visible in the England tour. We don't know what they are, right? We may never know it. That's okay. But at the end of the day, he did deserve to play. And maybe Vihari sort of pipped him because Vihari bowled or bowls, right? So maybe that was one of the things that worked in Vihari's favor. But it doesn't matter when you have a guy who's already on tour and who's been sort of your squad. He gets the chance. He's the next cab of the rank, as they say. So, just coming back to Vihari, I would say this is a mistake I'm hoping that the management does not do with him. He gets a continuous run, at least for the rest of this year, if that's something that's very idealistic, but I hope so. So there are many home tests. He scores 100, he sorts of beds down, and I've seen enough in this guy's batting and enough in the way he approaches the game.
He has a temperament. He has the right temperament for Test cricket, so that's good.
Right, and he could form a very useful, let's say, middle order foil for Pujara or a Rahane or a Kohli in a way, and more importantly to the lower middle order. When Pant attacks, if this guy can stay on the other end and give him the sort of stability, for example, between him and Ashwin, they could be the ballasts, they could be the stable influences, whereas Jadeja and Pant would attack. So in an Indian game, you would expect both Jadeja and Ashwin will play, and then that would make a mouth-watering lower middle order. For me, this could be the absolute perfect lower middle order, This could, most champion test match sides always had a very strong lower middle order. If you take the Australian team in the 90s to early 2000s, right, or whatever. So they had Gilchrist coming in, and they always had a very attacking number 6, Damien Martin or, Darren Lehman, one of these guys who could sort of stabilize, and on the other hand, this guy would just tee off, right, Gilchrist would. So that's
where does this leave Rohit Sharma then?
That is an excellent question, because he did a very good job as well in this test series. I think in the couple of opportunities he got, I think his 69 in the third test was very important, right? It ensured India scored 440 instead of 350 or some such, That was good. And when it comes to those sort of things, I think Rohit Sharma did enough again to be a part of the squad, but in Indian
conditions, will he be part of playing 11? Yeah.
Yes, I don't see him a part of a playing conditions, because I think he was basically chosen on this tour because he's a guy who plays. He's a touch player.
He's a back, and also he plays very well off the back foot.
Yes. So
pulling and hooking and those kinds of things. Yeah.
Exactly, and he has enough experience as an international cricketer now to suit his game, given the pitch would be bouncy or whatever. So I would say he would be a part of the squad, but he may not get to play many test matches going forward. He would be one of those guys who would be in the squad who would get a game when one of the regulars are injured or are unavailable, let me put it like that. So that's my count on Rohit Sharma. So yes, we discussed a lot on Pant. Going forward quickly, so Pant, I think, is the coming man, as we already discussed. So I think we've said most of the things that we need to say about Pant. I'm really excited about this guy, and I hope he's able to translate the potential into a performance and a long, successful career. As far as the Indian team is concerned, that would be perfect.
And he's also a good babysitter, right? So
yes, he's also building on his credentials.
So that's nice. Yeah.
No, I mean, there are other big people out there. Ambani's daughter got married, so he may have another opportunity later down the career to do some more babysitting, and to a more, let's say, a slightly higher cost per hour or whatever. So we'll see. So at the end of the day, then that leaves the bowlers. So for me, I would like to leave the fast bowlers to the end and Bumrah to the last, because I have a few things to say. But what do you think about the spinners?
So we have Ashwin, we have Jadeja, we have Kuldeep, right?
Exactly.
So, if India are playing a test match in India, I would always play Kuldeep.
Interesting.
And it would be either Ashwin or Jadeja on the other end.
All right.
I'm a really big fan of Ashwin.
Yes.
I hope he comes back after his injury layoff. I don't know how bad his injury is. But Ashwin is a match winner on Indian pitches. He has 300 plus wickets, right? So he's not. So I would play Ashwin and Kuldeep in my test matches, providing they're up to full fitness, both of them. Jadeja is a good, he can control the flow of runs. He can bowl really tight lines, not allow batsmen to play any loose shots. I mean, not loose shots, but expansive shots. He's very good. He's disciplined. But I would have Ashwin and Kuldeep in my playing 11. Ashwin is how old is he now? 32, 33, something like that.
Yeah, early 30s.
He has probably another 3 to 4 years left in his.
Maybe more.
More? Yeah.
He's a spinner.
Okay.
Yeah, go on.
Who else do we have? We also have Yuzvendra Chahal, but he's not played a test cricket, right? Has he been?
No, I don't think they see him as a test match option. But okay. So to limit ourselves to the options that were used in this series, I'm going to say yes, the spinners did a very good job. Ashwin was good in the first two tests. Jadeja was very good in the third and the fourth, and Kuldeep has been, as we discussed, a revelation as far as bowling in Australia is concerned. So I think they still have a very important job, Jadeja and Kuldeep, tomorrow to win the match for India. But my take is, if I were to just quickly respond to what you said, as far as Indian pitches are concerned, Ashwin is still the number one spinner for me. So he has his place, and for me, because he also bats, you can have a batsman less. You can play the five bowler theory. It helps, right? But for me, as at some point in time, I think the previous episode we talked about it. Ashwin's effectiveness is always more when there's a Jadeja on the other hand, who's able to not give away too many runs and keep it very tight. And Jadeja himself is no less of a spinner on Indian pitches because of the picking up at the fourth, fifth test. So he can be a match winner by himself. For me, therefore, the top two spinners as far as Indian playing conditions come in are Ashwin and Jadeja. Kuldeep will be the third spinner whenever there's a third spinner required. But you could be right. India could sort of, throw it up there and say, you three are the spinners for me. Any two of you three will play and leave it at that,
Yeah, and Kuldeep is still young, so he's the future. He will be the future match winner, especially on Indian wickets.
Even abroad. See, that's the point of So that's fantastic. So for me, I would say just what we discussed about these three guys, the three openers, would be more or less same, but Ashwin would have a little bit of a more of a seniority as well as pedigree that he's earned his place in the Indian team. So that's my take going forward. So coming to the quicks. So we had, I think, the same three quicks more or less play every test, if I'm not wrong. So there was, I think, Umesh Yadav and Bhuvi did not.
Was the only addition, yeah. Yeah, he played at Perth, but I think that was the only occasion when we had more.
For me,
and Ishant didn't play in SCG at SCG.
Yeah, of course. No, but for me, look. So let's look at Ishant, Shami, and Bumrah as our main fast bowlers, and we can just have a word on Umesh. For me, I'll do it right away because Umesh was a bit disappointing in Perth. I thought he was a bit too all over the place. He could not bring any sort of consistency. He was incisive. That's his role, of course. He's not expected to be consistent, but he was a bit too much all over the place for me, right? I think he may have let the management down a little bit, in my opinion. But when it comes to the other three, I think they are the main reason why India has won this Test match series. The batsmen have been good. Batsmen have been good in the past. Never has an Indian captain had the luxury of such a sort of bowling attack with him when he's toured abroad. I think these three, and they have converted it into results. So I would like to squarely place this entire series victory on the shoulder of these three bowlers. Ishant, who's the, let's say, the workhorse indeed. But he's good with the new ball. He's not just a workhorse, but he's also very good with the new ball. And Shami complements him perfectly with his pace and incisiveness, but his effectiveness with the old ball. And Bumrah is
second innings.
Of course, second innings. And then Bumrah is the most complete fast bowler at this moment of time out there. It may change in the next Test match, of course. But for me, he has really been a revelation. I mean, we've talked about it at length, I guess, in the last episode as well. But this guy may not have a long career, may not have a career of 100 Test matches, 80 Test matches. But if he's still playing 35 tests, 40 tests, 50 tests, if he's this effective every time, I would say, if possible, don't go too much with him on Indian pitches. Let him play abroad and let him get one or two tests in an Indian Test series, just like what you're doing with Umesh Yadav. Treat him that way on Indian Test series. But when he's touring abroad, he becomes very important. So if you could use those 30, 40 tests, even if it means for a period of 7 or 8, 10 years, that he plays abroad mainly.
Like Philander. They're just like South Africa do with Philander.
Of course. But Philander is also very effective in home conditions.
Subcontinent?
Yes. He doesn't have to play in subcontinent. I'm saying Philander, his home is very effective. So Philander plays at home.
No, I'm not talking about home. It's more about pitches which are supportive towards fast bowlers or seaming.
Exactly. So if you ever have a very fast Chandigarh pitch or a very fast pitch somewhere else, play him.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be the one Test match he plays every series. So I think in India as well, we have learned that there is no point in preparing pitches that finishes Test match in 3 to 4 days, and you have to have enough balance. So there would be at least 1 or 2 Test matches a series where there is enough bounce and there's enough carry that a fast bowler is still in the game. Correct? That would be the Test match Bumrah may play along with any other bowler that's ready. So for me, that's how I would like to see his utility, so that he's a real test match winner abroad for India. And I would like to retain that. And if required, cut down his work in IPL, cut down his work in one days, whatever it takes, man. You don't get test match winners like this, test match winning fast bowlers for India. This is like gold dust. So I would say, please try to see how you can extend his career. We don't have to see him burn out in the next 3-4 years of bowling all the time. I would rather see him 7 or 8 years, get a 50 test match career, but a very effective one. Right? This is my take on Bumrah. Anything to add? Anything to differ, agree?
No, I fully agree. He summed it up very nicely. Right. We have to preserve Bumrah. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think that's the main message here. We need him for the long run.
Exactly. And I really hope the team sees it the way I have been talking about it, and they are able to give him more and more test matches abroad and sort of save him from the shorter formats and the T20 games. Let's see. All right. That was that. So unless you have anything more to add, we can move on to the Australian team.
Let's move on.
All right. So with the Australian team, I would say they're a bit underwhelming. We knew going into the series, India were the favourites for a reason, of course, right? But I was hoping there would be more of a fight put up by this Australian team. What do you think?
I'm really disappointed because the trio, the fast bowling trio of Stark, Hazelwood, and Cummins. I think we spoke about this earlier also, Ajit, that Stark was there and then he was not there. So I think that hurt them a bit because he is a tearaway fast bowler who can make an impact. And how many wickets has he taken this series? I think it must be 12 or 13. We don't seem to remember anything.
No, that's the point. You've hit the nail on the head, I think, because he's been absent. That's the point. So he's the spirit of this attack, Together, they are very exciting. Stark, Hazelwood, and Cummins would win you matches anywhere, even on a dead subcontinent pitch. I would back this this bowling attack to take wickets. So this guy is no spring chicken. So he's had nearly 200 wickets. So that's the thing.
He has 200, right?
No, he hasn't.
He's still one short. Okay.
I think so. So look, in this test series, he's taken all of 6. I think he's been, let's say he's been more effective than it comes across in Perth and Adelaide. But it's not, he's not really come out and taken those 5 hours or those real incisive spells that you expect from a guy of his pace, his, experience. Because Hazelwood is your banker. He's the guy that holds the attack in one place. Cummins and Stark are the attacking options, right? So Hazelwood is the long-term, let's say, prospect where he's like a McGrath. He'll keep one end tied up so the other guys can take the wickets. That's the place where he has sort of not delivered, unfortunately. I think Cummins had a very incisive spell. We all appreciated what he did on the 3rd test, right? In spite of, he took a 6-4, right? Yeah. So, and he's been very effective. Even though he's not taken wickets, he's been very effective. Hazelwood was sort of 80% of where he needed to be, but he was still there. He was more or less doing his work for me, right? The sort of together, they could not really make enough of a impact. So he has taken, let's say, almost 10 wickets this series, but that in itself is not the most important thing because he's not had those 15-20 minute mercurial spells where position loses 3 or 4 wickets.
And this remark by Shane Warne about Stark, saying that Stark looks really flat, he's not trying hard or he's already given up, something like that, and then Stark has responded saying, if I keep listening to Shane Warne, then I will have to retire.
Exactly. He has a point.
He has a point.
He was a bit harsh.
Go ahead.
Warne was a bit harsh, I thought. What did you think?
He was harsh, but I was just pointing out the truth there. Look at Stark's body language. His shoulders had dropped. He was not really excited, when he took the new ball on, especially with the old ball when he starts reverse swinging. He's very good with those full swinging Yorkers.
Exactly.
We didn't see a lot of them. I mean, he had kind of given up. I think I don't know where his mojo went.
Maybe there was
between the Ashes and this series with India, in Australia. So in South Africa, I did see him bowl a very nice spell. I think which test was it? Was it the 2nd test match? I don't remember which one it was. Okay. But he had a very good spell with the old ball, a lot of reverse swinging balls. After that, in this series, I didn't see a lot of reverse swing from him. If there was some, it was few and far between, and they were not as effective as they were earlier. I don't want to, I don't want to rub things the wrong way, but
No, I
is it
think
because of something that happened or
as in
something that
something
has
off the
not
pitch, you
happened?
mean?
Not off the pitch. Is this because of the way they have maintained the ball?
Yeah, could be. Are you hinting at his effectiveness was heightened with some, let's say,
Yeah.
tactics that
When
was used
something
by the
came
team?
out, yeah. When something was
I
brought
don't
out,
know.
yeah.
Could be, man, could be. But I'm just thinking, look, for me,
Mm.
there are two aspects to this. One is the reverse swinging aspect. The other is the effectiveness. When it comes to his pace and his body language being aggressive and him being, very potent in his bowling. So, you're absolutely right. In my case, I don't think his effectiveness has been reduced by presence or lack of certain tactics that may or may not have been used by the Australian team previously. But I'm going to say his body language was down. That's where I agree with you. He didn't look like this guy who was in your face. He probably is not always in your face, but when you get that blood pumping and when you get a couple of really good balls in the right place, you see this test match dynamic changing when people like him are bowling. That never happened in the series. This I totally agree with you. Right?
Yeah.
Something that probably he's had just a quieter series, I would say, but it was unfortunately coinciding with the fact that the rest of the Australian batting order was not firing, and this guy needed to turn up badly. So that's why it's shown him in a very wrong light,
Bad
or
light. Yeah.
very, yeah.
Mm.
But I would say that's all there is to it, and probably in Australia,
I
look,
hope so. I
yeah,
really
they're
hope so
confident.
because I would really. I told you earlier. I also mentioned this in our first podcast that I really like fast bowlers, real tearaway fast bowlers doing well. In Test cricket.
Yes, yes.
That keeps that gets my blood pumping as well. I really like to,
I think it's
like
the
to see
same
such,
everywhere.
yeah, yeah.
Everywhere, people like to
So
see this
for
fast.
example, when Kagiso Rabada is bowling, I really want to see him bowl. I want to see those 5, 6 over spell because it's
Yes,
quite
yes.
exciting. I would really like to see Stark bowl well. He come
It's
back.
unfortunate.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's really
that he
unfortunate.
couldn't
Let's see what
turn
he
up.
does in Sri Lanka with Sri Lanka though.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
yeah. I think
does
I
well.
think they may get the brunt of it. All the talk that's been going on, and
Yeah.
he may have been fired up enough to go flatten out Sri Lankans, which would be unfortunate. But I don't mind that. I'm happy as an Indian fan that didn't happen this series, and I'm also sort of, looking forward to him gaining back his mojo or getting his, the
Yeah.
edge back into his bowling. Right? That
Isn't
would be
this
perfect.
kind of happened also with Mitchell Johnson sometimes? That he was off and then he was on again.
It happens, man. See,
Yeah.
even I think Mitchell Johnson had all of 300 wickets or some such. I mean, he played only 70, 75 tests. So I'm going to say, yeah, so these are special bowlers. Sometimes, they turn up and they can change the series in a matter of a session sometimes. Or sometimes they don't turn up and they're not as effective. This guy will never land it on a same pitch, on the same place every time. Right? So, let's see. But yes, you're right. Their contribution was sort of not as much as was expected because of
And
their.
I really have to mention this though. I read an article about Mohammad Shami on Cricket Info
Go on.
that he has bowled the most number of deliveries in a calendar year
Yes.
for a seamer.
Well done him, and well done the Indian team management
Yeah,
for
exactly.
ensuring he
So
gets there.
and he was also very effective, right? I mean, he's not like he's
Yes.
leaking away runs on one end while the other guy is bowling really
He's
high.
always there or thereabouts.
Yeah,
Even
exactly.
with
So,
yeah.
so
Go on.
India did not do that well in England, although the end score line suggests that there was no fight between them. But he did bowl well there.
It was not. It was not up to the bowlers. The bowlers were always there. The
Exactly.
bowlers were doing their work. It was the
So
batsmen.
if you look at his body language, it doesn't suggest anything. At the same time, when he comes out to bowl, he bowls with his heart out. That's what I would like to see from a fast bowler.
Now that's what I read also on Cricket Info, right? He's one of those dream bowlers as far as a captain is concerned.
Exactly. Yeah.
You have two of those, Aishan Sharma, and him.
Yeah.
So that's why I said it's sort of ideal. Never has an Indian captain had this sort of a lineup. It's supposed to be bowling.
Okay.
So coming to the Australian team, so yes, the fast bowlers were not as effective, but for me, Lyon sort of lost a little bit of the edge after the second test match. He had taken 17 wickets in the first two tests, so we were all I was sort of very much keyed up, hoping this guy would make the difference in the next two tests, which would be MCG and SCG, where he would be more suited, let's say. Unfortunately, he couldn't carry that on, and I think Pujara and Indian batting has to be given a bit of credit in the way they handled him.
Mayank, especially Mayank.
Mayank as well.
I think it started with the MCG test where Mayank took him out. Yeah.
Exactly. So they did a very good job there, and they made sure sort of his lines and lengths were broken, and the drift he was getting was sort of taken out of the equation. Just it's a very confidence thing as well, right? Sometimes it's the same place you pitch, but it's the way you're bowling that it helps. So I think the Indian batting can take a bit of credit for that they were able to take this guy's effectiveness out. And also, between them, the bowlers more or less did as much as they could, but the batsmen never stood up. So coming to the batting side of it, they don't have 100 yet in the series, if I'm not wrong. Correct? They don't have 100 in 4-match series, which is unheard of from an Australian batting lineup, who are so effective. Their batsmen, their top 4 are enough most of the time. In any of those champion teams, they had Hayden, Langer or Ponting, and if one of these guys missed out, there was always a Martin or a Gilchrist. If you go back all the way, even to the previous champion generation, there was always a Steve Waugh or Mark Waugh, and they also had fantastic openers, right? So this is quite something. They kept out a generation of batsmen. Those champion teams, they kept generations of batsmen out because of their effectiveness. So that was the thing that was missing here. There was no agenda-setting opener. There was no middle order batsman who could seize the initiative. So sort of they were lacking in many ways, and it showed up. It also showed up very clearly in the result. So this has been the main problem for me. They don't have enough settled positions in the middle order or at the top who could make these telling contributions or who could take the fight back to the batting lineup.
Yeah. So it is the overall team that has failed.
Yes.
Not the individuals, but the team itself.
Look, taking Smith and Warner did not help at all. Those guys were sort of covering a lot of the deficiencies that were present in the team. Now it has come into stark contrast that they're not there. And stark is a pun intended, I suppose. So, otherwise, you would see that these guys were good. These guys were so good that they were able to cover up over all these small things. They did lose 3-0 in Sri Lanka. They were not doing well in South Africa, preventing or leading to what happened right out there. So, I would say now it's probably there at a low ebb. I think they will bounce back, but it may take more than just a couple of series, is what I predict for the Australian test team at least.
And
right?
Tim Payne, do you think will continue to be the captain? At least for the Sri Lanka series, I don't think they will change that.
Definitely. My opinion is he would go on. But once Smith returns, by the time Ashes comes around after the World Cup, right, I would say Smith will be forced, in air quotes, to take over because there are not enough results. See, you can be an Australian captain only based on results. It will never happen in Australia that you do 2 tours, lose them badly, and you still retain the captaincy as it happened with India previously, right? So it'll just be brought into focus, and they'll say, "Thanks, you're really good. We would like to retain you in the team. You're good as a keeper and as a senior statesman, but that's it. Thank you." Right? That's how I expect it will go. So we spoke about it when he said the temporary captain thing. He'll just become the senior statesman in the team. All right. So at the end of the day, it's unfortunate. He was not blessed with the sort of team most captains would like. But then it's a transitionary period, right? They've gone through a few of these Australian teams. In India, we've also gone through those, but it's not been so stark from the crests and the troughs as far as the Australian team is concerned. We've been there or thereabouts, and sometimes when you don't perform too well, people sort of say, yeah, it happened even last year or last 2 years. These guys have had generations of champion batsmen, and then suddenly when these troughs happen...
There is a big void there. I think they don't have a standout batsman at the moment.
Exactly. We'll see. I'm hoping Khawaja had a middling to good series. I was hoping he might still do it. He would score the first 100 of the series for Australia. He might still do it tomorrow, and I'm hoping he does.
Might still do it, yeah, indeed, yeah. In
right?
one session.
Well, one session may not happen, but I think he will.
I'm just kidding.
I know what you mean. I think he'll just pick it out, and I would think him and Sean Marsh and Travis Head, and to a large extent even Marcus Harris, these top 4 or 5 would have to really stick it out tomorrow if they have to save it. Right? That's a good opportunity for all of them to get into the runs as well and address that. So yeah, that's more or less a roundup. So effectively, who's your man of the series from India? And from
It has to be Pujara. It has to be Pujara.
I can't debate you on that at all. For me, it's Pujara as well, but maybe it's Bumrah if you were to sort of, because we are all happy
But
about
Bumrah got only 1 wicket in the first innings here.
if you want,
if he had one,
for tomorrow.
okay. But I still think it needs to be Pujara. He is the backbone of this.
He was the difference between the teams. He's my man of the series.
Yeah.
And for Australia, whom do you think is the man of the series?
Should there be one?
Shouldn't there be? I mean, I'm saying let's
Okay, yeah.
the
Okay,
most improved.
from a neutral perspective, I would say because of his attitude and the way he, turns up every time he tries to bowl or bat, it has to be Pat Cummins.
I guess so, unless you have 110 not out or something from Usman Khawaja tomorrow.
Nah, but I think it will be in a losing cause, even if Usman Khawaja is going to make that.
Well, man, let's call him Usman Khawaja. We are from the subcontinent. He's Osman Khawaja because it's not Usman or Osman, but it's Khawaja. So never you mind.
Khawaja. Yeah, okay.
I interrupted you. All right. I started it. I just called him Khawaja, and I think you followed it up. But he's Khawaja. So, anywho, so now if we are done with this, Giri, let's go on to the next one, which would be the the Pakistan and South Africa test. Shall we go there?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. So while we were sort of recording this, we see that South Africa have wrapped up the second test match and have scored the 40 runs required with a little bit of drama. I think Hashim Amla was injured out and they lost a wicket. I think Markram was injured in the fourth innings, so Theonis de Bruin was promoted to open, but he couldn't last too long and he was out. So effectively, South Africa now 2-0 and very much headed towards a 3-0, what I had predicted a bit cheekily in the previous episode. So, what do you think of Pakistan's performance this test?
First innings disappointing, second innings impressive because they fought back well.
Yes.
And that's it. I mean, they lost it in the first innings.
Yes, I sort of agree with you. So here, unfortunately, their first innings total was too less, 177 on that pitch. It was a spicy pitch. They got the worst of the conditions as well because South Africa won the toss and inserted them in. But that's it. That is test match cricket, isn't it? You have to play out the first couple of sessions on a very spicy pitch if that's what is required. But then, if you get 400 with the attack you have, you are able to sort of stick it to the opposition. So they missed out on that. Again, Shan Masood was good in the first innings. Sarfraz Ahmad finally shrugged off a bit of the weight.
Yeah, but I'm really unhappy the way he got out. It was a reckless shot. He shouldn't have been playing that shot. Sarfraz, yeah.
How was it again?
I think he was caught behind. He went after a wide one. Yeah.
I think he tried to get one too many behind point, sort of stand up and try to glide it down backward of Kali points. And I think he nicked it from the
He was able to score some runs, of course, but then I think he had a start. He should have continued because Amir, on the other end, was taking a lot of blows.
Yes.
Duan Olivier, wow. He was.
Oh, yeah, man.
He was hostile. He was really hostile. And Amir was taking so many balls and was still continuing. So Sarfraz should have thought more before playing that shot because I think he should have supported Amir. They could have gone beyond 250 if they had played together for some more time.
I would have thought they were capable of more. If you remember, in my mind, I almost went back to this Perth test match a few years back with Dumini and Stein, if you remember. They were able to bat. So they were in a similar sort of a position, but it was the second innings. And I think Dumini scored a 170 or 160 and Stein scored a 60 plus and that changed the whole complexion of the test match and they won the test match, right? So I was so hoping this would be one of those instances because that would have been a fitting reply from a Pakistan team where these guys are sort of stuck, but they find themselves, they always are able to fight out of a corner. That's always been the hallmark of a Pakistan team. That was, I almost was like so hoping, guys, come on, this is it. You've got the bit in between your teeth. Yeah. You just have to go through it. Another session you play out, you'll get to a point where you're top. Unfortunately, it didn't happen.
This happened sometime in India. I think maybe 20 years ago in India during the 99 series. I think Pakistan were down to 20 odd for 5 or 6. Yeah. And then they fought back to around 200. Moin Khan, I think, played a century or something like that.
Yeah.
So I was expecting that kind of fight back. So Sarfraz Ahmad should do better than that. He's the captain, I know, but as he was playing as a batsman on that occasion, he should have done better than.
Agree with you. So they left too much of a gulf. I think they started really well on the second day, and they sort of reduced South Africa to 4 down, even before the lead could be taken. But then there, I think exactly what those guys did. Faf du Plessis and Bavuma. I think Bavuma has a very low average, I think mid-30s, but that's very well-earned average, I would say. He's never scored an easy run, I think. All his runs are tough runs. Even in the first test match, he scored a tough half century when the team was down, right?
He has got only one test century, I see, so...
That's okay, but all of his runs were scored in crisis. Is what every time when you look at his scoring, if he scored a 50, the team was in trouble. He did that again, but this time Faf du Plessis was able to guide him through those innings, and then that was the real difference there. Even Quinton de Kock couldn't do too much. He scored a 40 odd, if I'm not wrong. But I think that performance widened the gulf so much that the lead was 250 plus, or that's usually a match-winning lead, and they were able to indeed convert it. So in the second innings, I thought Pakistan played really well. So again, Shan Masood opened and did a very good job. Ashraf Shafiq sort of went out very bravely and took. I think he was outscoring Shan Masood, even though he got there to the pitch much later.
Yeah.
And then Babar Azam did his bit. I think Babar Azam is the coming guy as far as Pakistan team is concerned. He may have put his let's say hat square.
He has been for some time.
Yeah, but in the test matches, he's now maturing very nicely.
Very nice.
Also, in the first test, he scored a tough half century when the chips were down. This test, he's done it. That is the key. So he's sort of showing that his maturity. His talent is never in doubt. We have seen what he can do in the shorter formats. His talent is never in doubt. It's the temperament that you have to build, or the temperament that you have to show that you are able to play when the chips are down. He's doing that. He's done this twice away. That counts for a lot for me. Right? He may have thrown his hat squarely in the ring as far as the captaincy options are concerned, but not in the short term, maybe immediately after the World Cup. Right? This is my take on it. So, anything to add as far as the batting lineup for Pakistan is concerned from you?
I think Azhar Ali is a disappointment.
Yeah.
He should do better. He's the most experienced batsman, I think, right, in their team. So, in the current lineup.
I think Shafiq was under pressure. He has responded, but he needs to do more. We already discussed it in the last test.
Yeah.
Azhar Ali's struggles in this test match, his and Fakhar Zaman's, are sort of properly in focus of what's happening there. Azhar Ali was worked out beautifully in both the innings by Duan Oliver. If you look at it, he sort of scared Azhar Ali into Azhar Ali's technique was all over the place suddenly. This is a guy who's played 60 plus tests. He scored a 100 in tests. This is no mug with a bat by any stretch of the imagination, but just the way Duan Oliver has roughed him up in the first two tests. His footwork was all over the place. He was looking like a leg before candidate because he was shuffling across. He was not getting forward or back decisively, That is what a good fast bowler can do. This we have seen multiple times. I mean, Mitchell Johnson nearly ended the career of Jonathan Trott, right? So it can happen. And Duan Oliver has shown that again. And just it probably adds to the excitement of why we look forward to fast bowlers bowling in tests, right? So, again, now segueing into Fakhar Zaman, I was hoping he would still get to open in this test, or he was played down at number 6 in the second innings, which was a bit weird for me. But then he had again a chance. Look, he was there at 200. His team was 200, and this was again a chance for him to score even a quick 50 or a 60 to show that he's there in the fight, right? I don't care, the result would have really changed. But then it would have shown that his worth in the team is still valid, and he has enough between his ears, because that's all there is at the end of the day in a test match, I would think, in a pressure situation. And he failed to show that temperament. That's unfortunate for me, right? So, bowlers of South Africa?
Bowlers for South Africa, Duvan Olivier.
Yep, it's all about him for me. Again, another 5 more wickets in this match for him, and a lot of menace, a lot of threat.
Wow.
Right?
And Dale Steyn also bowling at full throttle. That was a pleasant sight.
He took another 4-4. He was, in fact, very unlucky. I heard a major part of his spell yesterday, and I think he was very unlucky to not take a 5-4.
Yeah.
But this is the Steyn of the old. This is really the Steyn of the old, and I hope another 10 tests, 15 tests at least from him we get. And it was very fantastic. It was very good. Sort of Philander was feeling his way in, but between the other three, they had enough.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Olivier, it was very costly in the second innings. He was tongued around a bit, but that's okay. He had enough menace to rough up a few of the batsmen and made sure that they would not score a 400 or some such. No, on that pitch, I think 175 would have been a very tough target in the fourth innings.
Yeah.
I think between them, they ensured that that would not happen, and they hardly got a target of 40, 42, and they were able to chase it down. So, kudos to South Africa. I would
Yeah.
say. And
Look at their bowling lineup now. Philander, Steyn, Olivier, Rabada, and when Ngidi is fit, he will
they
also be
always
back.
have fast bowlers. They lose a few to call back and all these things. They don't care. They have enough.
Yeah, so
I
wow,
hope
that's amazing. That's
they
very
really
nice to.
to their potential.
And Rabada, of course, is always there in your face.
And I love
So,
that guy. I love his attitude. You know, he has to be penalized every now and then, just trim off the excessive aggression, but that's what you need in a fast bowler. Nostrils flaring up with the anger in his face, a little bit of a banter occasionally with the batsman. I really love that. I think he had something to say to Mohammad Amir, and I think one of the batsmen, I think, just gave him a smile when he was dismissed. There was nothing more to be said.
yeah, happy that he got out.
I think it might have been Hassan Ali. I have to check who it was if I can look at the dismissal again. Oh God, it was not. He was happy because he was so thoroughly worked over, and he just gave him a smile. It was a fast bowler to fast bowler acknowledgement of, my God, man, you've done well. You know, it was nice to see that on field, acknowledgement. It was very nice. It was very nice.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's that. And I would say Faf du Plessis was the man of the match, second match, and deservedly so, I would say. And I think they're still hurtling towards a 3-0. Do you see any changes there? Do you think that will change?
No, I think Pakistani batting really needs to respond. I think they have good enough bowlers, but the batting has let them down so far.
Agreed.
And Joe Berg I don't know how the pitch is going to play this time, because last year, same time around, India, South Africa was quite a tough pitch.
Yes.
If it's anywhere near that, we're going to end up with some broken fingers here and there, I think.
I don't really expect much of a change, right?
I hope so. You should toughen them up. You should also play on good hostile pitches.
So yes, I mean that's also a challenge, right, for the batsman. You don't have to have 400 plays 450 every time. It can be 200
exactly,
plays 450, and that will be still good test match. So yes, I'm looking.
Coming back to your question, Ajit. So I'm going to go with a South Africa win again. I hope there's a closer fight, but I don't see that happening. No.
I agree with you. Unfortunately, I have to agree with you there, and unless really this is the nadir that Pakistan team needs to reach before they start fighting back, because they will. They are very famous for that. This might be the corner tigers coming out. If that is the case, that'll be fantastic. Let's hope.
I would love that. I would love to see that.
Because look, their bowlers deserve to win a test match here. They've done really well. Mohammad Abbas sort of felt his way in, but I think now he's set up nicely that if he gets to play, he's able to make enough of a contribution towards a victory. Amir is bowling with enough fire that he's able to, I think, give you some results. And Hassan Ali needs to come back, I would say. Again, Shaheen Shafri, they chose, that was one of the weird things for me, that they chose to retain Amir. And Hassan Ali had to go out. That was very weird for me. Hassan Ali deserved his place in the second test.
But Amir got 4 wickets in the first innings.
He has proved himself. Then why not get this young guy to sit out, the youngster in the team to sit out and give? Yes, continue to have.
And Yasir Shah was ineffective. He didn't get any wickets. He was.
I told you it was wrong that he could not be rested, or he could not be. Maybe this was a test match. Look, the opposition had 4 fast bowlers. This was a test match where he could have been, but the thing with them is, what I see in that team, there are no bowlers. I think Fakhar Zaman will have to be the guy, or Azhar Ali will have to be the guy. Shan Masood did a good job. He was
surprisingly got even a wicket. He even got a wicket.
The way Markram was dismissed was very unfortunate. That would have gotten anybody out. It was a terrible ball. The ball never bounced above ankle high and just hit the middle of the middle. So it was unfortunate. So. But for me, they don't have enough people who can take a couple of overs off when the fast bowlers need a break. That might be the other issue. So they needed Yasir Shah. But you're right, he was not very effective. He did not have enough of a contribution at all in the series. So I don't know if they'll be a bit brave in the last one and go with an all-pace attack, simply because the pitch might be like a green pitch, not very far from the outfield. I don't know.
I hope so. I mean, just looking at the scorecard of South African first innings, I see that Mohammad Amir and Mohammad Abbas bowled 30 odd overs, while Yasir Shah bowled only 21 overs. So he was really not used as a strike bowler.
No, not as a
like you said. Yeah, so
holding bowler where he bowls 35 and the rest bowls 20.
Like Hanuma Vihari.
Well, Hanuma Vihari was strangely effective. I don't know if you know this. He was always effective when he was brought on to bowl. He did the job that was prescribed. So there's this famous passage where Jim Maxwell asks bowler, "What is he saying, man? He's always chattering, yada 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 yada. What is he saying?" He's saying Bihari was bowling and Pant was saying to him, keep it there, keep it there, keep it outside off stump, keep it there, keep it there. He was just making sure there was a lull in the game. The batsmen are not going to get any runs. And all the balls were outside off, well outside off, you wouldn't be widened. They were turning away sometimes, sometimes not. So he was strangely effective, and that nearly resulted in a catch at slip which was dropped by Rahane, I think. So
Yeah.
let's come back to South Africa. So
Sorry. Yeah.
no, my bad. So at the end of the day, I would say South Africa are poised to take the series.
Yeah.
Right.
But just looking at the injury list, Markram and Amla seems to have been injured while batting in the second innings.
I think that's a bit of an ice pack thing.
Yeah,
Same
okay.
I haven't read yet any major something like he's ruled out or some such, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, well, this is an interesting thing. I just opened Cricinfo's homepage and I see Sarfraz is saying bowlers were not up to the mark. Very interesting.
Okay.
I'll have to read this, and more importantly, I'll pay a bit of attention to what the Pakistani media has to say after the test match. So we'll see. All right. Now, the last thing for me in the ongoing series perspective is the two one-day internationals that have happened between New Zealand and Sri Lanka. I would like to quickly go through that. That was a very interesting series so far because there have been two results. Sri Lanka have lost both, but I don't think they need to be ashamed of the way they played. So in the first one day, Jimmy Neesham came back. I think he took some wickets and he hit 5 6s of Perera in the 49th over or some such. So he made a barnstorming return to the team, and New Zealand ended up with 370 odd. Right, so that was never going to be a match that you would win easily. But Sri Lanka did their bit. They came to 320 and they fought hard. So that was good. Right. So in the first one day, I think first of all, I think Guptill sort of laid a platform. He played for a run a ball 138 or some such, and he was supported throughout the order. And Jimmy Neesham came out and just put an icing on the cake perfectly, right?
Yeah.
And then Perera was unfortunately he was bowling really well up until that point until he gave away 30 odd runs in that last over of his. Then I think Kushal Perera hit a fantastic counter-attacking innings of 102 in the first one day. And Dikwella had a good start, and Gunatilaka, I was always wondering what is Gunatilaka doing in this team. He did not look the part in the test series, but in the one day he's proving his point. He's playing well. I think he did well in both the one day so far, and they batted well. They came to 326 and they were all out. So that's a good match for me, right? I think Malinga has brought in something. He's also the captain of the team, and he's able to inject this fighting spirit. I like that. That was sort of missing, and New Zealand looks very complete in their performance on the pitch for me. What do you think?
I think they will be quite a strong team in the World Cup.
Exactly.
They have a lot of these utility players like Colin de Grandhomme,
yes,
Jimmy Neesham,
exactly.
also to some extent Saudi, who can throw the bat around a bit,
yes,
and also bowl fantastic line and length deliveries. Swing.
Even that
Saudi for swing, yeah.
They're going to play in England.
Yeah.
I think they have a lineup to compete as far as bowling is concerned. Let's not discount the spinners. Ishwari was very good in the second ODI.
Okay.
Sort of 40 for 3, 40 for 50 for 3, what he had was very good. And he got down a bit in the last 2 overs by Perera. That spoiled his figures. So coming over to the second one, again here, they played out really well. So what I saw is a contrasting set of performers. Colin Munro had an 87 and Taylor had a 90. So Taylor is sort of correctly setting himself up for what could be a very well a swan song for him when it comes to one dayers at the end of World Cup, but maybe not. I think he can contribute a bit more in tests, but one dayers maybe he might call his time on one dayers. Let's see, but he's gearing up very nicely here. Then Nicole sort of had this nudgety 30, and then Neesham again hit a 60, so they got to 320. Unfortunately, the only sore point for me was that I think Taylor sort of ran out Munro, and Munro had a chance to get to 100. But okay, so by the by. But
there were 4 runouts in that innings.
He himself was run out afterwards. Taylor himself was run out. But that was sort of just a run out from a good throw from the deep rather than a miscommunication. But yeah, that happens. So they did well, I think. And then Sri Lanka were dead. They were buried. So Gunatilaka had a 71, but there was nobody supporting him apart from Mendes with a 20 or some such. Then in comes Perera. I think This is a long overdue innings. This guy has the potential to be out and out complete all-rounder in a one-day or a T20 setup. He was never doing enough with the bat, but in this innings, I think he showed what he could do. He nearly won the match by himself. 140 in 74 with 13 sixes. I mean, a strike rate of 190 in a one-day international. While scoring 140 is like miraculous for me.
Yeah.
If he had taken this Sri Lankan team home in the second one-day, I would have considered that probably a top 5 one-day innings of all time sort of a situation. Chasing 320 in alien condition. My God, the way he was hitting, it was always like he was going to get out any point in time. But he never stopped. That's the thing. He kept going. And I don't think it helped that New Zealand dropped 6 catches. I don't know if you saw the highlights.
No, I didn't see that, to be honest.
So New Zealand dropped 6 catches. And there were 6 different people, including Kane Williamson. One of his catches looked like that was it. It was Perera. Unfortunately, he parried it over the boundary for a 6. He was on long off or long on, if I'm not wrong. And so all those, and then Guptill dropped a catch. These are all like bankers in the team. They never drop catches. So it was weird to see a New Zealand team.
They had 3 overs remaining, right? Sri Lanka, they couldn't play out the 50 overs. I think if they had played out the 50 overs, they would have won it. And Perera was the last to get out.
Look, while chasing 320, they were 9 down for 254.
Yeah.
So it was never going to go the distance. I was sure of that. So either it would end in the next 5 to 8 balls with him hitting 3 more sixers, or he was going to get out. Because Nuwan Pradeep, I don't know what he can do. He can probably get you a single. I don't see Perera pacing himself out like that. That's the whole point. So that's why he's not as effective as he can be, because at any other player at that point in time would have said, you know what, I'll take a single off the last ball of the over and I'll keep it to the last over. This is where I would always commend somebody like Dhoni. His tactics may not have been always appreciated, but that's what he used to do. He used to try to score. If Dhoni were in this situation, exactly like Perera, in the same form and the same number of runs behind him, India would have won the match. Because what Dhoni would have done is taken it to the last over, scored 1 boundary in each of those 3 overs, right? Mm-hmm. And you leave yourself 15 in the last over. I think he's done it once or twice, right? By scoring.
I've seen it do I think he did it once in Caribbean. I remember that.
Exactly.
It was amazing.
He would back himself to do that. Then you would lose by 7 runs. It's a bit heartbreaking, but it's so much closer, so much more realistic that you can win from there.
Pretty deep, yeah.
Unfortunately, I didn't see Perera doing that. He was swinging for the hills, man. He was swinging all the time. And I think he was hitting them cleanly. That was the other reason why he was swinging. And unfortunately, he got out. That's that. But a fantastic series. I did not expect that the series would be so competitive. And Sri Lanka would really throw down the gauntlet for New Zealand. And it's unfortunate that they couldn't win one of these matches. But let's see what happens in the third one. Anything for you to add from this one-day series perspective?
No, not really. I think we discussed most of the things. And about New Zealand becoming one of the front runners for the World Cup.
Indeed. For me,
they will be in the semi-finals at least. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're right. So I'm hoping, I'm one of those people who supports the underdog. So I'm really hoping this New Zealand team will lift the trophy in 2019, even at the expense of India's team. They are able to lift the trophy. They deserve it. This is probably a golden age as many as golden ages that they've got. This might be the peak of that, and they should convert it to a trophy. They always semi-final, final, last final they lost to Australia. So this time I'm hoping they're able to lift the trophy. Let's see.
And Sri Lanka will need to. I think they have to reinvent themselves.
No, look, they're always there. The skill set is there. They're always a bit. Let's say they're these mercurial players, and sometimes it's not all technique that's been grooven in like nets and stuff. They're sort of mercurial, and they have this own technique and own way of playing, and they should back themselves to do that. It's fine. This one-day series, if anything, should have shown them. That's what they should have done right through the last year or so. They are also in a trough. It's very easy to say they're in a trough, but it's an extended trough. If they are to get out of it, the only way they'll be able to do it is back themselves. Play the Sri Lankan way. Don't think about playing the English way or the Indian way or the Pakistani way. Play the Sri Lankan way, which is you have these mercurial players coming out of nowhere, hitting, for example, Kusal Perera's 100 in the first innings or first one day, or Perera's 100 in the second. That's what it shows. So back your bowlers, be truly or uniquely Sri Lankan, and you get the results. This is my takeaway from that, at least. Okay. So that's mostly quite a lot of things we discussed. We've, I think, gone well into the 80s, a number of minutes. But quickly to wrap up some of the other ongoing events, I wanted to discuss in detail the Australian ODI squad versus India, but if I were to quickly summarize, first of all, what are your thoughts on this?
I think the main highlight here is Peter Siddle coming back into the team.
That's a good one.
I don't know what was the reason behind it. I still don't understand why they would do that. They should have included, is Jai Richardson in the team?
Yes.
Jai Richardson, is that the name? Okay.
Yes, he's there. Jai Richardson.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. Good then. Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
Go for it. First you.
No, it's yours.
So I would say, I read somewhere they have 26 players in the last 11 matches. Right? Effectively. So including India series. So they have listed out the teams. So for me, I have a reason why. Look, the core of the team has been shaken up a little. 5 people have gone out, which is weird. But I think they're sort of still experimenting getting the last, let's say the 15 people they want to identify for the World Cup. Right? That's where, for me, Siddle comes in. He's been now a proven performer in this BBL. And I think also in their one day, like the domestic one day tournament that they played before that, he's been a very good finisher as far as the end of the innings comes, right? That's why they want to bring him back into the setup. I see this no more than a temporary move with the World Cup in mind. That's all. I don't see it as a resurrection of his career and he'll play another 2-3 years. No. But more like with the upcoming World Cup, with his experience of already playing in England and with his experience of playing previously, Peter Siddle might be the right sort of a guy to have in the team. Look, come the World Cup, who would be your fast bowlers? Right? Mitchell Starc will play. Josh Hazelwood will play. Pat Cummins may also come into it. Right? Depending on how their injury is. Then you would need a guy who's sort of stable with Hazelwood. That's where... Yeah. And it's a chance you could play 3 fast bowlers easily, right? And for me, Pat Cummins and Mitchell Starc will be used very sparingly. They'll be used as pure spearheads. You play one match, he plays the other sort of thing, right? Then these 2 guys could be sort of the bankers or the holders. In England, you play with 3 fast bowlers minimum, right? Then you have Marcus Stoinis, who can do a bit of bowling, and there are other people in the team, right, who can sort of do this. That's what I'm looking at. And then, for me, I thought some of those people, Chris Lynn not being included was a bit weird because I still see him in the bigger picture. And Peter Handscomb being included was a bit of a surprise. Usman Khawaja has been brought in again with the same thing in mind, with the World Cup in mind. This is what I see. I told you, he's their best batsman in the series, probably in the Test series, and they want to first of all continue the form and see if he can make a place for himself. Even their one day top order is sort of unstable. So they want to see if this guy can provide a bit of stability. Right? That's the whole point. So that's my take on it. So moving forward, in the ICC Women's awards at the end of the year, were you able to look at that?
Not to a large extent, no. But no. I recognize that only Smriti Mandhana was voted the best ODI player. Was that so?
And also the ICC Women's Cricketer of the Year. So that was very big for me. Look, this is sort of very important that this shines a light on the Indian women's cricket. This has to happen. I think we are not very far off from a place where we are able to have an IPL for women. It should happen. I've been sort of talking about this for 2 years already now. And this puts more spotlight on the Indian women's team. And I really like that. So she was not only voted the ODI Player of the Year, but also the Best Player, the Women's Cricketer of the Year. So this is only the second time. It's the Rachel Hayhoe Flint Award, the latest Women's Player Award. So she's the second one. It was started in 2017 and she's the second to get it. That was great. Also, Harmanpreet Kaur's contribution has been sort of recognized. She was named the captain of the ICC Women's T20 Team of the Year. And these 2 are the people, or along with a couple others who are playing in the BBL right now, the Women's BBL, right? So that's fantastic. So it's time, I think, for BCCI. All this is showing them that they are in a position that they should have a T20 tournament for women as well. We could consider it when it can be done, whether it should happen parallelly with men, whether it should be done separately, whether it's a very small one, a 15-day window, right? All these are just logistics that you have to work out. But for me, the Indian women's cricket especially, is ready for a T20 tournament, right? They could keep it small enough that enough players come in, and look, the Indian or the women's cricket calendar is not stock full of events so that there is no window or some such, what IPL is facing. There's no such thing. So they should just take it. If it happens in July, you should do it. If it happens in December, you do it. Whenever is possible in the Indian conditions, It's only a T20. You should be able to take it on. So this is my opinion. Right? This is the thing I wanted to bring forward in this lecture point. So going further, another nice thing for me is Afghanistan qualifying for the 2020 World T20 Cup directly based on the ranking. So they are the 8th team right now in the world. That puts them ahead of Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. That means they qualify directly. This is a fantastic achievement from the team. I would like to congratulate the Afghanistan team. What are your thoughts on this?
Truly deserved, I think. They have been the most consistent T20 team, not considering India, of course. India and Pakistan, they have been there. But amongst those three teams, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, I think they have been more consistent.
Of course. And
amazing performance in the Asia Cup last time around.
They are showing overall their growth is happening. See, look, it has to happen in a T20. It's easy. One day is easier. Test is the toughest, right? So they were blanked very easily by India when they played in 2 days. But that's okay. That's just an awakening for them. But what they're showing is, look, if they were to take this advantage, the attitude that they take to T20s, they're able to take into one dayers and win. If they're able to replicate the same attitude in tests into from one dayers into tests, they will become competitive. They'll play third, fourth day as well, and then maybe they'll still lose. It's fine, but that's the thing. I see this growth, tremendous growth in Afghanistan cricket. Now they have their own first class setup as well, right? So they are the coming team for me from Asia, and this also shows how far behind the pecking order Sri Lanka and Bangladesh have fallen. You're right that Afghanistan has easily leapfrogged them, and they beat Bangladesh 3-0 in a T20 series this year. So that's how far ahead they are. So they deserve to be qualifying directly, and their ranking is well deserved. And Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, we know Sri Lanka is going through a trough. We discussed this. And Bangladesh are as mercurial as any other team out there.
Yeah, they're not consistent. I think that's the problem with them.
That was a shocker for me. The 3-0 defeat from Afghanistan was a real shocker because Bangladesh still has most of their core team, Mahmudullah, Mushfiqur Rahim, Shakib Al Hassan, Tamim. All of these people are still around, these 4 or 5 really big names. And they were not able to win. That was very telling for me.
I think the telling difference is Afghanistan have more hunger.
Exactly.
So and they don't have everything on the silver spoon. So they need to work hard, and they know what they need to do. I think really passionate people in the team there.
They're really passionate people overall, in general, from that region. And it shows the way they play the cricket and the hunger that they want to be the best in the world. I was listening a while back to one of their ex-coaches who sort of was let go when they sort of were on the cusp of ODI qualification status, or I think just after they qualified, Afghanistan chose to invest in more international coach. He's a local Afghani, and the way he speaks gives you the intent that the team brings in. And he says, if I were the coach now, they would be 5th or 6th in the world in ODI. He's so confident, and he's so guaranteed in the way that his methods work, and I liked that, right? So they went ahead with more international pedigree coaches. That's fine. But what I like is the attitude that I see there. So I hope their cricket is able to grow into more, and their results also translate into that in the upcoming months and years. So good luck to the Afghanistan team. So the last point I would like to talk about today is Mashrafe Murtaza's victory in the Bangladeshi elections. Have you been following this?
Not much. I know that he now became an MP, right? How old is he? 35? He's almost at the end of his cricketing career, so he's going on to another career now, political career.
That's a very nice transition. So for me, sort of a good thing. Also, let's not forget, he's one of those guys who's actually seen the world, who's traveled the world as an ambassador of Bangladesh because he's a captain of the team, right? So it's sort of a very fitting sort of a thing to do. And in our part of the world, we like youngsters to get involved earlier. And also in India, there is quite a lot of segue from something that is a lot of spotlight, be it film, TV, or cricket, and then you can sort of convert it to a career in politics. This happens. Sidhu did it, right? So, of course, Imran Khan did it very clearly. And so, why not? Why not this guy? And I see that he was a good captain of the team. He is a good captain of the team for nothing. He has this burning desire, if I may use the word junoon, to make sure his team performs well. And I see that could be translated to something in that region, also in terms of the way the people live their lives. If he becomes a politician, he has a chance. And the amount of popularity he has is unprecedented, because the seat was called Narel 2, apparently. That's the seat from which he fought, and he had a 96% vote in that constituency.
Wow, that's a landslide.
I mean, the other people can just stay at home and they don't even need to campaign. What is this? Some sort of a joke? I'm wondering, because I don't expect any rigging. So that's how popular he is. So when you have that sort of popularity, and he's fighting from Awami League, which is one of the main parties out there, right? So that's well done him, and I'm hoping he also makes some real changes. As far as it might happen over time, there are also South Asians. There's a lot of bureaucracy and other things there, but maybe he's able to translate some of his attitude also to effects. It took Imran Khan 25 years or more in politics to get it to become the prime minister, right? So I'm hoping this also translates into something long term, and he's able to make a contribution that way. So
reminds me of Arjuna Ranatunga. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. It's also a good example.
Yeah.
Excellent example. So, but that's a different example. Yeah. I don't have the most, let's say, positive opinion when it comes to the cricketing ruling elite in Sri Lanka, or the cricketing administrators of Sri Lanka. So it's unfortunate. And when it comes to Ranatunga, there was an unfortunate event that happened where he had to be escorted out of a factory through commando protection, because he was afraid he was going to be assassinated when this political crisis was happening in Sri Lanka recently. So that's another thing altogether. Let's leave that out, because the people were so hell-bent on killing him, apparently, because one of the workers got killed in a factory or some such. So we'll park it out on the side. So,
yeah, that's fine.
But nonetheless, that's a good example of another South Asian converting his cricketing success onto a political career, right? So good luck to Murtaza, and good luck to Bangladeshi people, because I think he can bring a right sort of a message there. All right. Any other thing you want to discuss today, Giri?
I think we've covered a lot of topics, starting with India, Australia, Pakistan, South Africa.
I think we are very close to the 100-minute mark as well. So that's a very comprehensive one for you to listen to me.
But that's also due to the fact that we've had so many cricketing events going on in parallel.
Of course.
So it's good. I think it will come down a little bit in the coming weeks, but we'll see. I mean, it's been good. I mean, it's a well spent 1.5 hours. And a bit, I think. So
we'll do a bit of editing on this and let's get it up. Thanks a lot for your inputs, Giri, and thanks a lot for your participation.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for listening. Keep listening to the Armchair Cricket Podcast, and until the next episode, it's a goodbye from both of us. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.
You're listening to the Armchair Cricket Podcast.